Welcome to Modern Mindset, the show that picks the brains of the world's leading minds to help you unlock yours. Decoding the beliefs and strategies of global experts to give you an updated mindset to make the most of modern life. Hosted by the UK's most in-demand and highest paid hypnotherapist, Adam Cox.
This is Modern Mindset, the show that picks the brains of the world's leading minds to help you unlock yours. I'm your host, Adam Cox. And joining me today, we have an elite cycling champion, a cyclist, and modern day life coach, mindset focused, Debbie Rycraft. Welcome to the show today.
Thank you, Adam.
Good to have you on the show. So give us a bit of a background on you. How did you get into cycling, and what did it take for you to become at the higher levels of cycling?
When I was a child, I was born with a condition that actually by the age of 8 made me disabled. So that happened, and then through my life, I always wanted to be like an England netballer or something into sport. Also wanted to be a police officer and things like that. So when you sort of get told you can't do any of that and you can't walk again and things like that, it sort of makes you into a fighter. So I basically went against the grain. By the time I was about 13, I was starting to do sport again. And then by the time I was 15, I was playing netball for the county. And then I had trials for England. So, yeah, it was from, I suppose from the point I could walk, really, that I had issues, and then took them on, and they just...
So, I mean, it sounds to me like there was an element of rebellious there. You know, there was a challenge, an obstacle that you were facing physically, and step one was overcome that, you know, get over that particular issue. And when you got over that issue, was there a case of what's next? What's the next challenge for you? Or was it that you just enjoyed having the ability to do something that for a long time you were told you wouldn't have been able to do?
Yeah, I think I definitely thrive on a challenge. And looking back to my youth, I think that, it was what made me who I am today. Anything that was put in front of me, I fought it, whether it was, through my career path or through exercise. I carried on fighting my condition. When I became... it's easier to say instead of my age, but when I was about 5 years ago, I had a bit of an accident in the career I was in. And in that accident, it took me back to having the same problems of when I was a child. So I knew I got over it once, and I thought I've got over it a number of times. So now is my chance to do it again. So I wouldn't let something like that stop me. So through my own willing, really, and my own mindset, I just fought the condition I had, and went against the grain again when they're telling me I can't do sport, I can't work, et cetera, et cetera. The thing that actually helped me along the way, I was doing a lot of gym work, and I didn't realise that the gym was exacerbating my injuries. I actually, the surgeon said, to my dismay, he said, "Why don't you take up cycling?" And I just said, "Cycling? Ugh." I couldn't think of anything worse. Although I'd cycled all my life, like sociably, cycled everywhere with my parents and everything, that just wasn't on the forefront of my mind. I couldn't think of anything worse at the time. So I dusted off my bike because I thought something's got to be good for me, dusted off my bike, and then just went from there, really. I did what I thought at the time was a large amount of cycling, which was 14 miles. I cycled from the place I lived to the next town. And oh my God, that was just the hardest time of my life, it felt like. And all I wanted was a pizza. I wanted to just lay down. I didn't want to get on my bike again. My everything was hurting me, my legs, everything. And I thought, no, this is going to be good for me. He's a surgeon. He knows what he's talking about. And from there, I then entered some sportifs because I believe you need some goals in life, and then just, carried on from there, really.
So you became an accidental cyclist in a way. It wasn't that you had these kind of childhood dreams of winning cycling races and that kind of stuff. It was kind of a series of events that led you to a path. And was it reasonably instant that you found success in that sport, or was it you really had to kind of work and overcome challenge after challenge to start getting better?
Yeah, that's a great way to say an accidental cyclist. Yeah, I did. I overcame loads of, I come in front of loads of obstacles, which I then was able to overcome. But things like, my knees starting to sort of rear again. There was all that anxiety that I held, thinking that my knees were going to stop me from progressing. And all I wanted to do was complete 70-mile sportif, and to think that was my issues. And in the back of that, I was trying to keep hold of my career, because then I became a police officer and everything was being thrown at me. But in the forefront of my mind was, I must keep cycling. I must keep making myself better and making myself stronger, because only myself and I was going to do that. And putting aside everything that's happened to me in my past, I carried on. And what was currently happening to me then, I carried on pushing and pushing and pushing, because without my strength from cycling, I couldn't focus on life.
So, I mean, it sounds like, there was this inner resilience, this determination within you to kind of keep pushing through pain, challenges, setbacks, all that kind of stuff. Do you think that was innate within you, or do you think that was something that you had to build within yourself?
I think it was installed in me only purely because of what I was going through as a child. Not only did I have to go through the fact that I was being told I couldn't walk again, or if I do, I was going to have a severe limp at the age of 8. My parents were splitting up and my grandfather died. It was just, at the age of 8, you're like, whoa, your whole life is just, you think everything's just come down. But, so I think from that point, and having such strong relationships with my mother, just helped me build my strength and know that I just can't give up. She never gave up on me, so I've got to do this, So I was quite fortunate to have somebody like that around me.
And where did it get to, through these, initial, kind of, let's say, longer races? What was the pinnacle? Where did it get to the point where you're truly amazed yourself in terms of what you accomplished?
Well, I'd obviously mentioned about sportifs, and I went from sportif, and then we were so fortunate. Living in Cambridgeshire area, in Peterborough, having the Tour of Cambridgeshire start there, I was involved in sort of like the police side of things. And then I thought, I could actually look to compete in this, and this could be where I could go and competing, because a lot of people have said you're really good as a cyclist. I was doing a lot more miles now. I was joining clubs, which I thought was really important. I was getting tips off people. And then I thought, I'm going to go for it. So I entered the Tour of Cambridgeshire, and I entered it with, and I had to get a race licence and things like that. And then I realised that, I am actually a good cyclist. So only myself and I was telling myself that, I didn't have a coach. I didn't have anyone around me. It was just me, myself and I. So I entered the Tour of Cambridgeshire, and my parents were seeing me at different points, watching the race. And I remember thinking, I've got to do this. I've got to qualify, and you have to be the top 25%, in the top 25% to qualify. So technically in my head, I was saying, that means I'm the top 25% fittest in my age category, and I can do this. I know I can. Well, when I got in there, when I got back from the race, I'd obviously finished, which was a great achievement. It was about 82 miles. And there was problems in that race. My knees were hurting me a little bit, and I'd pushed myself a little bit too far. I didn't understand nutrition. My mindset was obviously not right. Everything was just, my shoes were too small because I had cramp in my feet at 70 miles. But I just kept going. I thought, no, I've been through enough. I can keep going to the end. Got to the end, and then to be told I didn't qualify by literally a couple of seconds. I just went, that just then felt like it destroyed me. And I'm looking at my dad, and they've finished with me, and I'm like, I can't believe that. That's not right. It turned out, cut long story short, after like asking the organisers, the results went to the UCI, and they said, no, actually, she did qualify. The timings were wrong. So something wrong with the timing chips. I was like, what? So then with that, I'm now going off to putting a GB suit on, and I'm now going off to race in Australia.
I mean, that is an incredible achievement from that kind of first really significant, kind of race. And like you say, with the benefit of hindsight, I'm sure you'd have done 100 things differently, but at the same time, with the resources and the knowledge you had at the time, it just seems it was that sheer determination and pushing yourself way outside of your comfort zone to kind of reach that point, and to go back from that huge deflation of, oh, I've just missed out, to then making it. How did it feel in that moment when they said, yeah, you're going to be going to race in Australia?
It was unbelievable. I was like, I can't believe it. And I don't think anyone else could. It was just like, I'm going to Australia, and I'm going. Everybody dreams about traveling and going to Australia, and it was one of my tick lists. So I thought, I have a really good reason to go now. Is to show that I'm obviously trying to prove to my the career I had in the police that I can do this. I am a good officer, and I am fit enough to carry on with my work. And I felt like some of it was, I must prove to everybody that I can do this, that, yeah, I was born with this condition, but I'm never going to let it stop me, And yeah, I just, it didn't sink in. It didn't sink in until I started booking the flights. And then I thought, I think I need a coach, because now it's got serious. So, and that's when it did get serious.
And I'm guessing because you thought at one stage you narrowly missed out, you're thinking, well, I can't let something like that happen again. You've got to prepare differently. And what was the length of time between hearing that news that you could actually kind of race in Australia to actually then racing? Did you have weeks to play with, months to play with? What was going on?
Yeah, I had literally less than probably 6 weeks to play with. And yeah, and in that time, I'd arranged to go to Thailand. Well, I'd actually found a coach who was from Peterborough, but actually lived in Thailand. And actually it worked out really well because Thailand and Australia are on a similar time zone. There's only an hour's difference. So he suggested that he starts coaching me, which he did online, and some Zoom calls and things like that. And not that Zoom was there then, but you know what I mean, some FaceTimes. And, he would monitor my progress, and he was like, yeah, you're amazing. You're a really good rider. You can do this, you can do that, and, blah, 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 and went through everything. And I was like, great, I'm getting on the plane to Thailand. So I got on the plane with my coach already waiting for me when I got to the other end. And then I had another problem when I got there is they lost my bike. And I was like, oh. And, we've spoken before this, my bike is part of me now. So she has to come everywhere with me. So I was like, I felt detached. I was like, what am I going to do? My bike is me, because I trust my bike. I trust my equipment. And that was one of the things that I'd realised that had happened to me. I didn't trust. They were going, it's fine, we'll get you another bike. I was like, no, I need my bike. So I had 10 days planning before the race. That 10 days turned out to 6 by the time I got my bike. So anyway, I've not gone on to anyone else's bike. I've met the coach on my bike. I'm riding next to him, and he said to me, he just went, oh my God. I went, what? He went, you can't ride a bike. I went, what? He went, how are you pushing all these figures and you cannot ride a bike? And I said, and I was just like blown away. So I realised that although I was doing everything that the figures told me, and I was pushing all these figures, physically I couldn't ride a bike. So, I got on that bike and I was too rigid. My mindset wasn't right. I was too all over the place. I couldn't climb, and he's like, I'm just blown away.
What did you make with that news? Because, for you to exceed your own expectations, qualify for, you know, an elite race, you know, wearing that GB top, and then for your coach to say, you know, you can't ride a bike. Did you look at that as, right, this is a body blow right now. This isn't exactly mentally preparing. Or did you think, well, hold on a minute, I qualified for a race not knowing how to ride a bike, not knowing about nutrition, not knowing about mindset. And the fact that I've got so much to learn kind of made you think, well, what could I do if I really prepared properly? Is that what was going on in your head?
Yeah, basically I thought, well, I've got this far, I'm not turning back. So I just looked at him and said, well, you better do something about it then. I said, you're my coach. So he said, okay, let's start. But yeah, in my own mind, I was like, oh my God, I was crumbling. I was like, I cannot let this stop me. I must now refocus. I've got to, now I know what I'm doing. I can cycle, but I can't cycle. So now I've got to just listen and be, and the good thing for me is I'm a practical learner. You know, we all have different learning abilities, and I've learnt that in life. So he showed me something, I would literally pick it up straight away, thinking, okay, I've got 5 days left before my race. So yeah, so we did a lot of practice work. You know, he was giving me blood tests to see where my glucose levels were, we found out where in training you have a sweet spot, you know. Loads of different elements we're going through in those 5 days, and credit to him, you know, and I suppose credit to myself that we managed to, you know, successfully do that. And then I got on the plane to Australia thinking, yeah, I can do this. And yeah, that's where Australia came in.
So what happened in Australia? There you are, it's race day. You know, how long was the race, over what time frame, and talk us through what happened.
Well, talk about poor preparing. I'm obviously in a really hot country at the time. So I'm in Thailand. It's 37 degrees. I've got just a normal cycling clothing for hot weather. I've gone to Australia. It's spring. It's like our spring there. So it was cold. So now I've not prepared. So, and he didn't prepare me for that. He was too busy with getting me ready that I wasn't prepared now for the clothing I had. No, not just the clothing around that I was wearing every day, but my cycle clothing. I'm thinking, I'm going to freeze. You know, and one of those things about a racing is you've got to keep your body temperature warm, or you've got to keep it cool. It's like anything. It's like any sport. So I've now given myself another challenge, thinking, what am I going to do? So I just thought, right, have we got an old jacket or something like that? And went to a shop, and I bought some cheap clothing, and I literally put that clothing on in the morning, because we're thinking it's 6 o'clock in the morning, it's freezing, it's probably 5 degrees, and I've got to do 67 miles, I think it was, to win. And I'm thinking, I've got to keep myself warm. At this stage as well, my body fat was low. You know, I was very I'd lost, to keep heat in your body was very hard. So, yeah, it was a big worry for me, you know, another worry that I didn't need, but I sorted it. The only thing I think I'm a bit of a problem solver anyway, so I problem solved that and just got myself some more clothing. So then came the race day morning.
And on race day morning, did you feel, okay, well, you've solved some of those problems, you're kind of ready for it, or did you feel, I don't have a chance here, I'm just going to go with the flow and see what happens?
Yeah, having solved all those problems, I'd cleared my head a little bit. So, and I'm one of these people that get on the line and think what will be, rather than thinking, oh my God, you know, that no one's going to be proud of what I've done. I just think, no, I'm going to give it my all. And as long as I know I've done that, I will achieve the best I can. And I'm standing in this race pen with other girls that I'm thinking, wow, they look like they're really muscly. And I'm starting to compare myself to everybody. And then I'm thinking, no, stop. You've got to stop this. And you've got about an hour while you're waiting. So you've got a lot of time to self-reflect and compare yourself. And I was like, stop, just stop. And then once I'd overcome that, it's in a cycle race, the first 10 miles is what we call in cycle racing full gas. So you literally turn on everything to be the ones at the front. you know, and if you've not got it, you're out the back. And I didn't want to be that out the back. I've done all of this to get here, and I wanted to show my country. I wanted them to be proud of me, you know, not only my country, but my friends, my family, everybody around me. So I just went off and I stayed, and I was in the third from the front, which is the best position to be in, right in the middle. And there was about 60 girls. You know, there was a lot of us in this peloton. I'm sure you've seen the world tours and things like that. It's big and it's quite scary because you're quite close to each other. And we were doing about 35 miles an hour. So at that speed on a bike, you know, you're a bit like, you've got to be conscious. Some people are dodging potholes. Some people are jumping. Some people lose a bit of, you know, people go dizzy because they've not eaten enough, you know, and you've got all that to contend with. Your accidents will start happening. And I think we got to about 20-mile mark, and we're now on a big freeway and so there's like 5 lanes, and obviously these are all closed roads. And all of a sudden, because it's the Worlds, you get different categories coming along, and you had the male category come behind us, and they sort of came behind us, but come at the side. And then all of a sudden you see this big accident happen, and I could see it coming. It was like something was telling me, move over. And so I did. I just literally moved to the left, and I got some of the girls in GB to move across as well. And I was like, come on. And they're like, what are you doing? I said, there's going to be an accident. And I'm like, what? So we took off some of the power, which is important as well, to keep that same power. We just took it off. And then with that, there was just a massive crash. And we were just like, and all you just see was bikes going everywhere. And now I'm like, oh my God. And I'd never seen that before. It hadn't happened in any of the races I'd been in, any of the sportives. And I'm like, so I didn't factor that in my mind. I just thought I was just going to race, finish, and that was it. And I was like, oh my God, what do we do? What do we do? And with that, there was and we worked out, there was 18 riders that were in front of this crash that actually got through it. And the rest of us were at the side or behind it. We ended up going down a sort of like slip road, having to turn around and come back up. And by the time we got round this crash, you could see the front of the group off. So anything more than 30 seconds in a race anything more than a couple of seconds is bad, let alone we're talking a minute. So we're looking, and these girls and I we're literally doing what we call through and off. So we're all trying to get onto the race. And I'm like, oh my God, I need to win this. I need to win. And so we were literally we were emptying our tanks. So we were just at full gas. So in your training, you can't prepare for this, because you've gone from the first 10 to 20 miles is going to be full gas. Then you're going to go a plateau. And we've just hit that plateau. Mm. So now my body is going, oh, she can hold this now. She can sustain this for 50 miles. She's going to be fine. And then there's going to be enough energy for me to be able to go and do the climbing stage at the end. But no, that didn't happen. So, yeah, big blow. So
you kind of, I guess, expended those reserves that you were saving for kind of later at that point. And did you manage to catch that kind of front group? What happened next?
Well, we carried on, and obviously not. There was some girls that just couldn't hang on, and we were trying to keep everybody going. That's typical of me, trying to help everybody else. And I'm like, I'll drop back and I'll go, no, come on, we can do this, because you need a big group to keep going. So we carried on, and we kept sort of bumping into other categories that were along the road, and we'd probably draft them and they'd help us. And so there was a lot going on the way. But no, we never saw that group again. It was just impossible. That minute turned into 2 or 3, and then that was it. They were gone. And then by the time we got to the climbing stage, our legs had just had it. And I wasn't a climber at that point, because I'd only just learnt to climb. So the flats were great. Cambridgeshire's flat. You know, I was great on the flats. But when it came to that climbing stage, I knew that this was my nemesis. This was, you know...
And then what happened? So you finished the race. Where did you place, and what did you learn from that experience?
Well, so technically in my head, I came first, because this group broke away, and any race official would have stopped the race because it was a big accident. So any race official, they have their own reasons for not stopping stuff, and I realise that. But technically, they should have stopped it, or they should have slowed it down, so we could all regroup. But it didn't happen, so you have to deal with what you've got on the day. So technically, I came in 18th. So if there's 17, 18 girls gone off, then I came first, because I'd kept up with that group. You know, the timings were all very much similar if you took away the 3-minute gaps we had. So yeah, in my mind, I won, because 1, I finished it. You know, 2, I wasn't in the condition that those other people were in, you know, and 3, everything I've been through, I mean, there's a picture of me randomly that this guy that I eventually met, who was from Peterborough, who was actually at the event, had took a picture of me and just walked up to me one day. He ended up being in the same cycling group as me. He walked up to me one day and he went, "Debbie, is this you?" And that was the only picture I had of me on the finishing line. And I had a big smile on my face, you know, and that to me was the biggest achievement.
Absolutely. So, you know, that was your first real experience of like real competitive cycling. And then what happened in the months and years that followed that? Did you kind of reflect on the areas of weakness, like the climbing and preparation and that kind of stuff, and it kind of fueled you? What happened?
Yeah, I decided to take a career break and go and live in Thailand. So to be with my coach so he could physically teach me. And we lived just at the bottom of a mountain called Doi Suthep, which is word for the mountain in Thailand. And that's where I learnt to really cycle and work on everything. And then with that, a couple of the big clubs around there were like, you know, she's hitting all I don't know if you're on Strava or understand Strava, but it's a cycling app where it's a bit of a cycling community. It's really good because you can challenge each other. And if you've got a segment on a road, you can get a PR on it, or a PB in some places, or you can be the queen of the mountain. And I was becoming this queen of the mountain around there. So I was starting to be looked at by local clubs and by the Thailand cycling officials and sponsors. And my coach was getting calls, and he was just like, "This is just getting out of hand, Debbie. You're going to have to start racing." I'm like, "What?" You know, and he's like, "Yeah." I went, "Oh, okay." So, yeah.
And then what was the race that for you, if you were thinking back on your racing, you know, elite racing, what's your proudest moment, would you say?
Really, it was in Thailand. It was my best moment, because I'd gone through everything I'd gone through, and then I just said, okay, I'll go in this race, and I'm in this race against all these elites, and I'm just looking at everybody again thinking, oh God, I shouldn't be here. This is not me. I've just done this for my good old knees that are just, you know, this is all a fitness thing, and now it's taken off. And yeah, I agreed to go in this race, and which was a 3-day back-to-back stage race, and something I'd never done in my life. It was always like little UK races, you know, called handicaps they're called, and you race against other guys and girls, you know. So I'd never been in anything like this. I'm thinking, yeah, if they can do it on the tours, on the world tours, I can do this. So my coach entered me into the race, and then I got to the first stage, and the first stage is what we call a criterium. So it's a bit of a circuit, and you have to do preems, which are you have to race to the finish line, and then you carry on going around again. So you have to do so many of those to score points. So I didn't actually understand what I was actually having to do. So I just did it. And there I am racing to every line. And my coach is like, "What are you doing?" I don't know, you know, but I'm enjoying myself. There's loads of pictures of me smiling, and I'm thinking, yeah, I've got this. And then with that, I finished, and I came first, and I won these preems, and I'm like, okay, I'll go with this. And, you know, I'm on the stage, I'm on a podium, I'm being given gold medals, I'm being given these cups and these certificates and these shirts to wear. And again, I was like, oh, okay, So then we have to travel. So it's very much like a pro rider. You know, we then all got on the bus. We then travelled to the next destination. And now stage 2, so day 2 was my climbing stage. Well, you can imagine how I was feeling. I was thinking, damn, this is not mine. This is not for me. And then I thought, no, you've come this far. Yeah, it is for you. So again, I had to change my own mindset because my coach certainly didn't, because I remember I came up to him on the day and his girlfriend was competing in the same race as me. And he said to me, Debbie, stage 2, now we know this is not your race because it's a climbing stage, okay? And I went, oh, okay. And I said, but if I catch up with Natalie, which was his girlfriend, I said, can I draft them? And he was like, well, you won't catch up with them. They're faster than you. So they were the elites, and we're like the elites. So they were like the pros and the elites. And I was like, and he said, you won't. Don't worry about that. I said, yeah, but can I draft them? I don't understand the rules. Can you help me out? And he was like, don't worry about that. I said, oh, okay. So there I am. I'm thinking, oh, no, I'm climbing. You know, my coach thinks I can't do it. And I thought, right, no, just go along with it. You can do it. So again, I had to play with my own mindset. And we're riding along. And these girls that are riding with me, they're like, who are you? And I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, who are you? And they start going, don't think you're going to win this, you know. I'm like, what? And I'm thinking, because there's lots of Thai nationalities there, and then there's me and this other girl who they call Westerners. So there was just us 2 in it. And they were like, don't think you can come here and then win our race. And I was like, okay. So there's 2 things now been thrown at me that to me are negative points. So I like to turn them into a positive. So I went, okay. Carried on, just thought, whatever. And then the climbing stage came along with the mountain that we had to climb. And I just thought, right, this is it. Got to go. So I literally just went for it. And I didn't turn around, because if you turn around, you lose, you know, the aerodynamic sides of things. So I just carried on. Next thing, this guy in this moped, so support vehicles basically were coming next to you, and he was giving me a bottle of water, and he went, go, go, go. I was like, what? He's like, go, go, go. I'm like, I'm going, you know, like, I'm trying. He's like, no, go, go, go. I'm like, I don't really understand what he's trying to say. So I carried on. He gave me water. He said, put one over your head, you know, because it's like 37 degrees. We're talking about midday now, and it was boiling. And I just said, oh, okay. So anyway, I got to I carried on, sorry. And then all of a sudden, one of the race organisers, so what's called the commissaire, he did sort of like the race organiser, he comes up to me next to the car, he goes, go, go, go. And I'm like, what's going on? He went, go, 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 10 minutes. And I'm like, don't know what they're saying. It's clear I could understand them, but I didn't understand what they were saying, if you know what I mean. So I could understand their language, but no. So anyway, I carry on like this. Anyway, in the distance, I look up and I'm like, there's a group of cyclists. I'm like, are that the pros up there? And they're like, and I looked at the moped, the guy who kept going up and down, supporting me. And he said, go, go, go. And I said, the pros? He went, yes. Okay. So then with that, I put my head down, because I thought in cycling, it's easier to be in a group than it is on your own. And I didn't know that there's no one behind me now. And so I've left the group that I was with, and now I'm joining the second group, which I should have never done. So there I am. I've got to the top of the mountain. And as I've got to the top of the mountain, the girls have sort of looked across and gone, who's that? And then I've heard someone shout, it's Debbie. And then I've gone to Natalie. I've just gone rode by her and I've gone, hop on, baby. Like, I don't know where that came from. And with that, I just saw the descent. And I can descend, and I'm heavier than some of the girls. So I just went for it. I just got in an aero position and just went. And I looked down at my speedo, and I'm doing like 62 miles an hour. Wow. And I just thought, yeah, don't look, just carry on. So I just did it. And with that, I can hear girls screaming, and they're now chasing me. And I'm like, oh, the chase is on. You've got to do this, Debbie. You've got to do this. And then I look up after going through all these hairpins and everything. And then I look up and I see this long open road. And I thought, nah, this is not going to happen. You need them. So I turned around and could see them chasing me. And I thought, let them catch up. And I just went into their group. So with that, I finished the race and I came first. And I was 10 minutes 39 ahead of my group. So I didn't just come first. I absolutely smashed it.
And how surprised were you when you saw that amount of time? Because, I mean, literally a few minutes ago, you're saying 30 seconds a minute, you know, it's all over, you know, that's the difference it can make, you know, between being unassailable. But a distance of like 10 minutes, I mean, that's huge. Did your identity change at that point? Did you kind of think of yourself as a different caliber of racer? Because it seemed to me that there was this imposter syndrome going throughout the whole kind of story here of, I don't belong here. I can't climb. I can't compete at this level. And yet here you are. And the race result, you're first, but not only first, a huge lead over everyone else. What did that do in terms of how you thought about yourself?
Yeah, I like that. Imposter syndrome, for sure. I definitely had that. The issue was, so there's me celebrating, and even the commentators were like, is that Debbie? So it was shocking everybody because I shouldn't have been there, you know, basically. That's what they were all saying. To the extent where they were wanting to drugs test me. And I said, go ahead, you know. And they then messed about with the figures and it turned out that I wasn't first. And they're like, well, that's not right. So everybody was contesting and turns out my coach was contesting with them. It turns out that they got it all right. But prior to that, I finished the race. I go to where the cool down area is and everything, and where we're going to have food, and because nutrition is really important. I realised that to get it straight into your muscles within the 20 minutes. So I'm going to get my food, and I tapped my coach on the back, and he just turned around and he went, "What's happened?" I went, "What do you mean?" He went, "What's happened?" I went, "I don't know what you mean." And he went, "Did you have an accident?" I went, "No." I said, "I won." He went, "What?" And he didn't believe me. And then when we saw the results, he honestly didn't believe me. He was like, "No way, no way." I went, and Natalie went, "Yeah, way. She did. She came in with us." And he just said, "Huh?" And he still couldn't believe it. And then the results were put out. And then that's when it said 10 minutes 39 ahead on the GC, so general classification. And he just went, "It doesn't just mean that you won that classification." He went, "You've won the tour." He said, "You've only just got to finish stage 3. He said, "You're that far ahead, there is no one else that can beat you now." He said, "You just got to stay with that group." And I went, "Really?" Because again, I didn't understand it all. And he said, "Yeah, so just turn up, ride your bike and enjoy it on the 3rd day." I was like, "Okay." So I just carried on eating, and people coming up to me, "Oh, well done, Debbie," you know. Some of them were saying drugs tester. I was like, "Yeah, okay, do what you need to do." Got on the stage, you know, presented again, you know. I was thinking, whew, I didn't expect all this. And then, yeah, that happened. And then stage 3.
And was stage 3 what you expected it to be? Was it that just kind of, you just got to turn up, or was there any kind of, you know, twist in the tail?
Yep, there were twists. So stage 3 was classed as a flat stage. So then my coach's like, "This is yours, but you don't need to worry about it." But come on, I don't go all that way to sit at the back and let all the other girls do the work. And I'm very much a team player. So if I'm going to see someone struggling, I'm going to bring them on because, you know, they've been there for me. So I'm going to help them. So, and bearing in mind, I'm one of the only ones in this race because they're testing me. The teams are testing me. I'm riding along on the bike, and we're in a peloton, and one of the girls drops off from one of the Thai teams. And she's a really good rider, but you could tell that the other girls weren't going to help her. And I had loads of energy in me. So actually, I just dropped back and I said, "Come on." So I said, "Draft me." And she just like looked at me. I went, "Draft me, come on." Because I knew I'd won. But I'm not going to let someone else drop because that's her mindset. You know, she's young, she's got a whole career ahead of her. Come on. So I brought her back on. And she went, thank you. I said, no, that's all right. Anyway, we carried on riding. And another girl gets next to me and she goes, oh, Debbie. And bearing in mind, we're doing 30, 40 miles an hour. And we're all having these conversations. They said, oh, Debbie, I need to tell you something. I said, what? They went, oh, there's this girl and she doesn't want you to, she doesn't like the fact that you've won and she's going to knock you off your bike. And I went, really? So the first thing that goes through my head are my knees. If you knock me off my bike, something's going to happen. You know, I cannot let that happen to me. So I just went, who? And she went, her. And I went, oh, okay. And I just thought, I'll stay away from her. I don't want any trouble. I'm not that sort of person. I just want to be here. So anyway, cut long story short, she comes up to me and she nudges me. And this girl does. And I just went, oh, here we go. Now, if you're relaxed enough in cycling, you'll bounce. If you're too rigid, that's when you'll come off your bike. So luckily I was relaxed and sort of bounced back. And as I bounced back into her. Well, she was a little bit rigid, so she screams and sort of goes off. She doesn't fall off, thank God. But she then comes back and says, that's it, you know, your history and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, I can't believe this is happening. So when I helped that one girl and her mates then surrounded this other girl who was the leader of the pack, she turned out to be, and just said, no, leave her alone. Leave Debbie alone. So I had all that to contend with in the pack. So we carried on. And with that, she just broke, and that means she left the pack and she raced off. So I thought, shall I go? And I thought, no, I better not. And even like the girls were like, just leave her. She's gone. And it didn't make any difference because I'd already won. She could break, but she's not going to be able to beat me. So anyway, so yeah, so all that had happened, and then we had a really nice race after that. Everything was really good, you know, there was no issues. And we got to about 500 metres to the finish line, and I just said to one of the girls, go on, because we all got paid a lot of money to race as well. So I said, just go. And she went, what? And I said, go. And she was like, I don't understand. I said, well, I've already won. I said, go on, get a place on the podium. So with that, I gave her first place and I took second because, of course, I didn't want to not be on the podium again, even though I didn't have to be. But, yeah, I just thought this girl deserved a chance. So, yeah, I literally drafted her into the finish. She took first, I took second. It's a close finish with us, but I knew what I was doing. And then that was it. And that was my stage 3.
I mean, it sounds such a drama. I mean, my cycling experience is very, very limited, you know. So for me, I see cycling on screen, you know, the occasional race. You're not expecting the kind of drama that you're describing. You know, I'm not expecting conversations and all this kind of like mental warfare that's taking place. You know, is that typical of what happens in these kind of like elite, you know, cycling races where there is so much at stake that it brings out, you know, interesting characteristics? For those people that are vindictive, that's going to come out. For those people that are compassionate and supportive, that's going to come out. Do you think it's just the intensity of what's happening? It brings out those kind of natural characteristics in an individual?
Yeah, it does for sure. Yeah, I didn't realise you could have a full conversation, but when I mentioned the sweet spot earlier, if you're at that stage of being able to train your body to get to that stage, you can talk like you and I are now, because your heart rate's at probably 150, but you actually, you know, it's not beating like it would if I was telling you to jump on the spot now or run, and it'd be beating quite fast. When you're in that sweet spot, you can have a conversation. And yeah, I mean, I've been watching the Giro d'Italia this week, and you see the guys in there, you know, they're having a laugh and they're chatting to each other, and the cameras are homing in saying, oh, I wonder what they're saying to each other. And it's probably just support, because at the end of the day, we're all human and we're all there to achieve one thing, and that is to win, you know, and to ride for your team. So yeah, I didn't realise how much fun you can have in a peloton if you make it fun.
And what did that win, you know, coming first place over a 3-day event, what did that do for you in terms of your identity, like how you thought about yourself? Like, did it take your life in a different direction? What What would you say, looking back on it now, was the significance of that victory?
There was two sides to it, actually. There was a significant side, which was the victory that made me go, actually, you're really good at this. And you're also really good at helping people. So put both of them together. And then that developed my race team. So I had, so I came up with a race team called Active Edge, supporting, at the time, males with mental health problems, whether that be eating disorders, mental health, not understanding their figures and things like that. Basically, teaching them not to be to train, but when it's race day, it's different. Race day has to be different, because race day is you train and train and train, and it's all serious. But actually, on your race day, you give it what you can. Because if I said to you, if you're racing for me, and I said, okay, Adam, let's, we're racing for you today, and all the boys are around you, and they're all going to race. But actually, in your head, you're going, I haven't got it today. Something happened last night. Okay, but you don't want to tell me, you don't want to tell the race lot, because you don't want anyone else to know. I'd always start my briefing as, okay, right, what have we got today then, guys? And they'd know that, and they'd go, oh, let's ride for, it's, Toby, and then Toby would be like, and I'd say, well, I tell you what, guys, what we're going to do. So Toby, you're going to ride for Toby, but Toby, if you feel like you've not got it in the race, just give it to the next guy. So I'd give them like 3 options. So if Toby got cramp, or Toby got something happen that is totally uncontrollable, they know they've got a peace of mind that all the pressure's not on them. So that's how we would race in our race team, because that's what I thought worked the best, because I had no pressure. I had little support, but having the right mindset in that race and knowing that it doesn't matter, I'm not going to put all that pressure on you if you don't win. We actually took loads of wins, loads of achievements from that. So that's what I took from my cycling, and from what I achieved as a champion. So I gave up my racing side of things to then support others. Yeah.
And now as a coach, helping other people with their mindset that might not come from let's say an elite cycling background or cycling at all, how transferable are the things that you learned to become a champion for everyday people with their own personal challenges? Are those lessons very transferable, and if so, how?
Yeah, I mean, everything's transferable if you know how to transfer it in the best possible way. I used a lot of my learning, and I'm a very good, I can literally see where the issues are. I can see if a bike doesn't fit somebody, because I can fit people on bikes, I can see if it's the wrong bike. I'll have a chat with them before, so I'll see what mindset they're in. There's loads of different things that I can draw from what happened to me, and that I wouldn't want to happen to anyone else. But I help individuals if they've had an accident on the bike and they want to try and get back on the bike, or they'll come to me and say, I haven't ridden a bike for 20 years. And you know how your parents or people will say to you, oh, it's just like riding a bike. Just get on your bike. That's what I'll use that phrase. I'll go, come on, it's just like riding a bike. And they get on the bike because I've put them at ease. And I say, it's all right, I'm here. I can do this with you. So it's just having that little bit of I suppose it's a little bit of a comfort blanket for people to say, I've been there, I've done it. I come across so many hurdles, and I got over all of those, and that's what I tend to do for these people. One scenario being a lady who had crashed, hadn't got on a bike for a year, and a friend of mine sort of put her in contact with me. She came out to my cycling tours in Italy, and after 3 days, I had a look at the way she rode a bike and gave her some new tips. And after 3 days, we were simulating racing, And then through lockdown, she just contacts me and says, without you, I don't know what I'd do, because I wouldn't be riding my bike. So yeah, those little things are quite nice.
Experiencing imposter syndrome yourself, where even though you did deserve to be there, you felt that there wasn't really a place for you, that actually, who are you to be amongst these kind of, let's say, high level, let's say more athletic, or, you know, whatever it might be. What advice would you give to someone currently struggling with imposter syndrome, questioning whether or not they have the right to be in the profession that they're in, or be in the role that they're in? You know, do you have any tips that you could share?
Just go for it. If you believe you've got what it takes to do whatever you're trying to achieve, go for it. There is no such thing as imposter syndrome. Stop comparing yourself against someone else as well, because that's what I was trying to do. And you just think, no, I'm good at what I can do, and I'm going to show everybody that I can do it. And no matter what barriers come up, even knock them down or just move them aside.
Because it sounds like there were two different voices inside your head. A voice that in the end won the battle, you know, of the devil and the angel on the shoulder, that said, actually, Debbie, you can do this. Give it your all, see what happens. But then there was that other voice that was that voice of self-doubt and, do I belong to be here and I don't have a chance? Was it just a case that for you, one of those voices were more influential than the other? Or was it a case that it was a decision that you made to quieten one voice and make the other one the dominant voice in your head?
Yeah, I'd call that one of the voices negative voice. And I realised that was actually people around me. So there was no positive push. It was all, you can't do this, you won't do this, there's no way you can do this, you've got this condition, there's all this going on, you've got a career, you can't just up and go. So everything was you can't. And I went, and my other side of me said, watch me. So it ended up sort of out voicing the negative side, and I turned everything into a positive. So you can't climb. Yes, I can. So...
Because, I mean, it seems like there's an element of you not just trying to prove other people wrong, but to that critical part of yourself wrong as well. It was that part within you that maybe was the echo of other people's words. You wanted to prove that point wrong as well. And how satisfying did it feel to win those victories and kind of all those things that either you were saying or other people were saying, you actually showed them the evidence that was never true?
Yeah, you're right. Because I became my own competitor. You only compete against yourself. And that's why I became as strong as I did, because I was competing against myself. So everybody else around me was, yeah, they were competitors. I agree. I've got to beat them to get somewhere. However, there's only me that's going to do it. So hence I did the me, myself and I. It doesn't matter what resources you have around you. You've got to have the right mindset. And I realised that without the right mindset, there was no racing. There was no Debbie getting better. There was, yeah.
And if someone's hearing this and they like your resilience, your self-belief in the end, the overcoming of that critical voice inside your head to achieve things that you had no idea that you were capable of until you actually kind of trusted yourself to see what you were capable of. If someone wants to reach out and connect with you, or perhaps even have you as their coach, what's the best way that they can either learn more about you or connect with you?
And they can literally, I've got cycling tours in Italy and Spain. And I tend to do a lot of my coaching there because you're being taken away from normal everyday life. So you can focus on you, not everything around you, like personal issues or work issues, so it's just focused on you. So I do like to move people abroad just to give them that out. And then the other way is I'm on LinkedIn as Debbie Rycraft. I'm on social media platforms like Facebook and everything. I don't have my own websites because I have them on the tour pages, so they can always contact me on that.
So look for Debbie Rycraft online on the social platforms, connect with you, and they can tap into your fascinating story and clearly highly resourceful resources that enabled you to do things that you had no idea that you could do. I think that's a fascinating story there. Debbie, thank you so much for joining me on the show today.
Thank you.
And to you at home, thanks for joining me on Modern Mindset. See you again soon for more.
Thank you for listening to Modern Mindset with Adam Cox. To automatically receive the latest episodes, please subscribe. If you'd like to support the show, please share this episode with just one friend you think it could help. And if this episode helped you, please leave us a 5-star review. Modern Mindset, picking the brains of the world's leading minds to help you unlock yours.